The marble floors of the Palazzo Vecchio echoed with measured footsteps as dawn broke over Florence in 1513. In a modest chamber overlooking the Arno, a man bent over parchment, his quill scratching against the silence. Niccolò Machiavelli, recently expelled from political life, was crafting what would become humanity's most honest examination of power. 5 centuries later, his insights burn with renewed relevance as we navigate a world more fragile and interconnected than he could have imagined. Today's society teeters on the edge of constant disruption. Information travels at light speed, reputations crumble overnight, and institutions that seemed permanent dissolve like morning mist. Economic systems shudder under global pressures. Political alliances shift like desert sand, and technological revolutions remake the rules of engagement faster than most can adapt. In this volatile landscape, the ancient question of how to acquire and maintain power takes on urgent new dimensions. The fragility of modern society presents both unprecedented challenges and remarkable opportunities. Those who understand the deeper currents of human nature, who can read the signs of change and position themselves advantageously, who can build lasting influence while others scramble merely to survive, these individuals will not merely endure but thrive. They will become formidable. But what does it mean to be formidable in our current age? It extends far beyond traditional notions of authority or wealth. True formidability in a fragile society requires a sophisticated understanding of networks, an ability to inspire genuine loyalty, the wisdom to know when to be flexible and when to stand firm, and above all, the capacity to create value and stability for others even amid chaos. It demands both the lion's strength and the fox's cunning, to use Machiavelli's famous metaphor, but applied to a world he never could have envisioned. The old certainties have crumbled. The career paths that once guaranteed security now lead to obsolescence. The institutions that once provided stability now seem as fragile as spun glass. Traditional hierarchies flatten under the weight of technological disruption and social transformation. In this environment, those who cling to outdated models of power will find themselves swept aside by forces they neither understand nor can control. Yet within this apparent chaos lies profound opportunity. The same forces that destroy old power structures create space for new forms of influence to emerge. The same technologies that disrupt established industries enable individuals to build global networks and create value at unprecedented scale. The same social changes that challenge traditional authority create hunger for authentic leadership and genuine expertise. Understanding this paradox, that our age is simultaneously more fragile and more opportunity-rich than any before it, forms the foundation of 21st century formidability. Machiavelli wrote for princes who ruled territories and commanded armies. His modern inheritors must learn to navigate networks, influence minds, and shape realities in ways that transcend physical boundaries and traditional power structures. Part 1. The Architecture of Modern Power. The morning sun slanted through Venetian blinds as Sarah Chen reviewed the overnight reports flooding her screens. As a senior analyst at a leading investment firm, she had learned to read the subtle signs that preceded major market movements. But this morning felt different. Social media sentiment was shifting in ways her algorithms couldn't quite capture. Political tensions in 3 different countries were creating unexpected resonance effects. Supply chain disruptions were cascading through industries that seemed completely unrelated on the surface. What Sarah was witnessing was the new reality of power in the 21st century, a reality where influence flows through networks rather than hierarchies, where perception shapes reality with unprecedented speed, and where the ability to synthesize information from seemingly unrelated sources has become the ultimate competitive advantage. Traditional power structures were built like pyramids, solid, hierarchical, and slow to change. Modern power structures resemble vast networks, fluid, interconnected, and capable of rapid reconfiguration. This fundamental shift requires a complete reimagining of how formidable individuals acquire, exercise, and maintain influence. The architecture of modern power rests on several interconnected pillars, each offering unique opportunities for those wise enough to understand their dynamics. The first pillar is information advantage, not merely access to data, but the ability to synthesize information from diverse sources into actionable insights. In an age of information overload, the capacity to filter signal from noise becomes a form of power itself. Consider how modern financial markets operate. Traditional analysis focused on company fundamentals and economic indicators. Today's most successful investors must also monitor social media sentiment, analyze satellite imagery of parking lots to gauge retail foot traffic, track patent filings to anticipate technological shifts, and understand geopolitical nuances that might affect global supply chains. The investor who can synthesize these diverse information streams into a coherent picture gains enormous advantage over competitors stuck in traditional analytical frameworks. This information advantage extends far beyond financial markets. In every domain of human activity, from politics to entertainment to scientific research, the ability to detect patterns and trends before they become obvious to the general population creates opportunities for extraordinary influence. The key lies not in having access to secret information, but in developing superior analytical frameworks and maintaining broader information-gathering networks than one's peers. The second pillar of modern power is network effects. The exponential value created when platforms, communities, or systems become more valuable as more people use them. Understanding and harnessing network effects separates those who achieve modest success from those who build lasting influence at massive scale. Social media platforms provide the most obvious examples of network effects, but the principle operates across numerous domains. Professional networks become more valuable as they grow larger and more diverse. Knowledge-sharing communities become more useful as they attract more expert contributors. Even personal brands benefit from network effects. As someone's reputation grows, more opportunities flow their way, which in turn enhances their reputation further. The most formidable individuals in modern society understand how to position themselves at the center of valuable networks, rather than merely participating in them. They become the connectors who introduce others, the synthesizers who translate between different domains of expertise, the platforms that enable others to create value. This positioning multiplies their influence far beyond what their individual capabilities might suggest. Building network centrality requires genuine value creation for others. The most successful network builders are those who consistently help others achieve their goals, who share information and opportunities generously, and who maintain relationships across diverse communities. They understand that in a networked world, power flows to those who enable the success of others rather than those who hoard opportunities for themselves. The third pillar is adaptive capacity, the ability to thrive amid constant change rather than merely surviving it. In stable environments, optimization matters most. In volatile environments, adaptability becomes the supreme skill. Those who can rapidly adjust their strategies, acquire new capabilities, and pivot their focus as circumstances change will consistently outperform those committed to fixed approaches. Adaptive capacity requires both psychological flexibility and systematic skill development. Psychologically, it demands comfort with uncertainty, willingness to abandon approaches that once worked but no longer serve, and the courage to experiment with new methods even when the outcomes are unpredictable. Systematically, it requires building diverse skill sets, maintaining multiple options, and creating feedback loops that provide early warning of necessary changes. The most adaptable individuals treat their careers and endeavors like investment portfolios rather than single bets. They develop multiple streams of value creation, maintain relationships across different industries and domains, and continuously experiment with new approaches while maintaining their core competencies. When disruption occurs, they have multiple paths forward, rather than finding themselves trapped in obsolete specializations. The fourth pillar of modern power is authenticity, not the shallow authenticity of personal branding, but the deep authenticity of aligned values, consistent behavior, and genuine expertise. In an age of information abundance and reduced trust in institutions, people increasingly look for individuals whose actions match their words and whose expertise proves reliable over time. Authentic authority cannot be faked or purchased. It emerges from years of consistent performance, honest communication, and genuine value creation. Those who attempt shortcuts through manipulation or image management may achieve temporary success, but they remain vulnerable to exposure and backlash. True formidability requires building reputation through demonstrated competence and character. This authenticity extends to understanding and communicating one's actual capabilities and limitations. The most influential people are often those who know precisely what they do and do not know, who readily acknowledge the boundaries of their expertise, and who surround themselves with others who complement their weaknesses. This intellectual honesty creates trust and enables better decision-making, both of which compound into greater influence over time. The integration of these four pillars, information advantage, network effects, adaptive capacity, and authenticity. However, understanding the pillars intellectually differs vastly from implementing them effectively in practice. Implementation requires sophisticated understanding of timing, context, and the specific dynamics of one's operating environment. Timing represents one of the most crucial yet least understood aspects of building modern power. The same action that proves transformative when taken at the right moment may fail completely when attempted too early or too late. Learning to read timing requires deep pattern recognition skills and the patience to wait for optimal moments while maintaining readiness to act decisively when they arrive. Context sensitivity involves understanding that strategies successful in another. The approaches that work in stable, established industries differ dramatically from those required in emerging fields. The tactics effective in hierarchical organizations require modification when applied to network-based communities. Formidable individuals develop the ability to quickly assess new contexts and adapt their approaches accordingly. Environmental awareness extends beyond immediate contexts to encompass broader trends and forces shaping society. Demographic shifts, technological developments, cultural changes, and geopolitical movements all create opportunities and risks that wise individuals monitor continuously. Those who can anticipate these broader trends and position themselves advantageously relative to them gain enormous advantages over those who react only after changes become obvious. The convergence of these elements, architectural understanding, pillar integration, timing sensitivity, time context awareness, and environmental monitoring creates what might be called strategic intelligence. This represents the meta-skill that enables all other capabilities to work synergistically rather than in isolation. Strategic intelligence cannot be learned from books alone, though study provides important foundational knowledge. It develops through practical experience, careful observation, and systematic reflection on results. Those who cultivate strategic intelligence treat every interaction as a learning opportunity, every outcome as data for improving their models, and every failure as information for refining their approaches. As Sarah Chen concluded her morning analysis and prepared her recommendations for the day ahead, she embodied these principles in action. Her information advantage came from monitoring dozens of data sources that most analysts ignored. Her network effects stemmed from years of building relationships with experts across multiple industries. Her adaptive capacity showed in her willingness to revise her models when new information contradicted her assumptions. Her authenticity emerged from her track record of accurate analysis and honest communication about uncertainty. But Sarah also understood that her current success represented only one phase in a longer journey. The same forces that had enabled her rise would eventually require new adaptations, new capabilities, and new approaches. Formidability in a fragile society demands not just initial success, but the ability to continuously evolve and maintain relevance across changing circumstances. This dynamic nature of modern power creates both excitement and anxiety for those seeking to become formidable. Unlike traditional forms of authority that once achieved could be maintained through established procedures, modern influence requires constant renewal and adaptation. This reality intimidates some, but invigorates others who understand that continuous change also means continuous opportunity for those prepared to embrace it. The first part of becoming formidable thus involves building the foundational capabilities and mental models necessary to operate effectively in this new environment. It requires abandoning comfortable certainties about how power works and embracing a more fluid, dynamic, and ultimately more exciting approach to influence and authority. Yet capabilities alone prove insufficient. Understanding the architecture of modern power must be complemented by wisdom about how to navigate the specific challenges and opportunities that fragile societies present. This navigation requires both strategic thinking and tactical sophistication, both long-term vision and short-term adaptability. Part 2. Navigation in Turbulent Waters. The conference room fell silent as Marcus Rivera finished presenting his analysis to the board of directors. For 18 months, he had been warning about vulnerabilities in their supply chain, suggesting diversification strategies that seemed expensive and unnecessary to most of his colleagues. Now, with global trade routes disrupted and competitors scrambling for alternatives, his foresight was transforming him from a mid-level operations manager into the company's most trusted strategic voice. Marcus's transformation illustrates a fundamental principle of formidability in fragile societies. The greatest opportunities for advancement emerge during periods of uncertainty and disruption, but only for those who have prepared themselves to recognize and capitalize on them. While others react to crises, the truly formidable anticipate them, position themselves advantageously, and use turbulence as a catalyst for accelerated progress. Navigating turbulent waters requires a sophisticated understanding of how disruption creates both danger and opportunity simultaneously. Every crisis destroys existing arrangements while creating space for new ones. Every technology that eliminates old jobs enables new forms of value creation. Every social change that challenges established norms opens possibilities for fresh approaches to persistent problems. The key to successful navigation lies in developing what might be called crisis readiness, not the passive resilience of merely weathering storms, but the active capacity to thrive during upheaval. Crisis readiness involves 3 interconnected capabilities: anticipatory intelligence, adaptive positioning, and opportunistic execution. Anticipatory intelligence means developing systems for detecting potential disruptions before they become obvious to the general population. This goes beyond simple trend monitoring to encompass understanding the deeper forces and contradictions that make certain kinds of change inevitable, even if their precise timing remains uncertain. Consider the rise of remote work, which seemed to emerge suddenly during the global pandemic but had been brewing for years beneath the surface. The technology existed, cultural attitudes were shifting, and economic pressures were mounting. The disruption was predictable in broad terms, even if its specific catalyst remained unknown. Those who recognized these underlying trends and prepared themselves for a more distributed work environment gained enormous advantages when the change arrived suddenly and completely. Developing anticipatory intelligence requires building diverse information networks that span different industries, cultures, and perspectives. It means reading widely outside one's immediate field of expertise, maintaining relationships with people who operate in different domains, and paying attention to developments that seem peripheral but might prove central. Most importantly, it requires developing the analytical sophistication to identify patterns and connections that others miss. The most valuable insights often emerge at the intersections of seemingly unrelated trends. Demographic changes in one region, technological developments in one industry, and cultural shifts in one generation may combine to create opportunities or challenges that none of these trends would produce in isolation. Those who can synthesize across these boundaries gain predictive advantages that translate into strategic positioning benefits. Adaptive positioning involves structuring one's life, career, and resources to benefit from multiple possible futures while remaining protected against various potential risks. Rather than betting everything on a single scenario, formidable individuals create what might be called convex positions, arrangements that provide modest benefits if nothing changes but enormous benefits if certain changes occur. The concept of convexity, borrowed from finance and mathematics, proves remarkably applicable to personal strategy in uncertain environments. A convex position is one where potential gains far exceed potential losses, where the upside benefits from volatility while the downside remains limited. Building convex positions requires thinking probabilistically about the future rather than attempting to predict specific outcomes. For career development, convexity might involve developing skills that become more valuable during disruption, building relationships with people who could provide opportunities in various scenarios, or creating multiple income streams that respond differently to different types of change. For investment, it might mean maintaining both safe assets and high-potential opportunities rather than committing entirely to either approach. The key insight is that in volatile environments, being approximately right about general directions proves more valuable than being precisely right about specific outcomes. Those who position themselves to benefit from broad categories of change, while protecting themselves against broad categories of risk, consistently outperform those who make highly specific bets about particular futures. Opportunistic execution means having the resources, capabilities, and decision-making speed necessary to capitalize on opportunities when they appear. Many people can identify opportunities, but far fewer can act on them quickly. The ability to move from recognition to action rapidly often determines who benefits from disruption and who merely observes it. Opportunistic execution requires several prerequisites. Financial resources or access to them enables rapid response when opportunities appear. Flexible commitments allow for quick pivoting when circumstances change. Strong networks provide information and support for new ventures. Most importantly, psychological readiness to embrace uncertainty and act without complete information separates those who capitalize on disruption from those who wait for certainty that never comes. Marcus Rivera exemplified these principles in his professional journey. His anticipatory intelligence came from monitoring global economic trends and supply chain vulnerabilities that most operations managers ignored. His adaptive positioning involved developing expertise in risk management and alternative sourcing strategies that weren't immediately necessary but would prove valuable during disruption. His opportunistic execution showed when he quickly developed comprehensive response plans once the crisis began, positioning himself as the obvious choice to lead the company's adaptation efforts. However, successful navigation requires more than individual preparation. It also demands understanding how to operate effectively within the specific dynamics that fragile societies create. These dynamics differ markedly from those of stable societies and require different approaches to relationship building, influence development, and goal achievement. Fragile societies exhibit several distinctive characteristics that create both challenges and opportunities for those seeking to become formidable. Information flows more rapidly but with less verification, creating both opportunities for quick response and risks from misinformation. Social structures prove more fluid, enabling faster advancement but reducing long-term security. Economic arrangements shift more frequently, creating opportunities for new value creation but threatening established positions. The rapid flow of unverified information creates what might be called information arbitrage opportunities. Those who can quickly assess the reliability of new information and act on accurate insights before they become widely known gain significant advantages. However, this same dynamic creates risks for those who act on false or incomplete information. Success requires developing sophisticated information filtering capabilities and learning to act decisively while maintaining appropriate skepticism. Building these capabilities involves creating multiple independent sources of information and developing frameworks for quickly assessing credibility. It means learning to distinguish between information that seems important but lacks substance and information that seems peripheral but reflects deeper trends. Most importantly, it requires developing comfort with acting on partial information. while maintaining the flexibility to adjust course as new data emerges. The fluidity of social structures in fragile societies creates unprecedented opportunities for social mobility, but also eliminates many traditional forms of security. Traditional career paths become less predictable, but new paths emerge more frequently. Established hierarchies prove less stable, but new forms of influence become possible. Social connections matter more than ever, but they require more active maintenance and continuous value creation. Success in this environment requires treating relationship building as an ongoing investment rather than a one-time activity. It means consistently creating value for others rather than simply extracting value from existing relationships. It involves maintaining connections across diverse communities rather than focusing exclusively on immediate peers. Most importantly, it requires developing genuine expertise and capabilities rather than relying solely on personal connections for advancement. The frequent shifts in economic arrangements create both opportunities and risks that require careful navigation. Industries emerge and disappear more rapidly, creating possibilities for early entrants but threatening late adopters. New technologies enable innovative business models, but render established ones obsolete. Economic value increasingly flows to those who can create new solutions rather than those who simply execute established processes. Thriving in this economic environment requires developing entrepreneurial capabilities even within established organizations. It means learning to identify unmet needs and develop solutions rather than simply following prescribed procedures. It involves understanding how to create and capture value in networked rather than hierarchical economic systems. Most importantly, it requires maintaining the financial flexibility necessary to pursue opportunities when they appear. The convergence of these dynamics, fluid social structures, and shifting economic arrangements creates what might be called accelerated meritocracy. Those who can demonstrate genuine value creation and problem-solving capabilities advance more rapidly than ever before, while those who cannot adapt find themselves marginalized more quickly than in stable societies. This acceleration creates both excitement and anxiety for those navigating it. The possibilities for rapid advancement seem limitless for those who understand the new rules, but the risks of rapid decline also increase for those who cling to outdated approaches. Success requires embracing this acceleration rather than resisting it, learning to thrive in environments where continuous adaptation becomes the norm rather than the exception. Marcus Rivera's story continued to unfold as he navigated these broader dynamics. His initial success in crisis management led to broader responsibilities and opportunities. His ability to synthesize information from diverse sources made him valuable for strategic planning beyond his original domain. His network of relationships with suppliers, partners, and industry experts provided resources for addressing new challenges as they emerged. But Marcus also understood that his current success represented only one phase in a longer journey. The same forces that had created opportunities for his advancement would continue to evolve, requiring new capabilities and adaptations. His formidability would depend not just on his current achievements, but on his ability to continue growing and adapting as circumstances changed. This recognition of the dynamic nature of modern formidability leads to a crucial insight. Sustainable success in fragile societies requires not just achieving positions of influence, but developing the systems and capabilities necessary to maintain and expand that influence over time. This sustainability challenge represents perhaps the greatest test of true formidability in the modern era. Unlike traditional forms of power that once established could be maintained through institutional position or accumulated resources, modern influence requires continuous renewal through value creation, relationship maintenance, and capability development. Those who understand this dynamic and build their approaches around it achieve not just temporary success, but lasting formidability that can adapt to whatever changes the future brings. The second part of becoming formidable thus involves not just understanding how to navigate current turbulence, but developing the systems and capabilities necessary to navigate whatever turbulence the future may bring. This requires shifting from reactive crisis management to proactive capability building, from opportunistic responses to systematic preparation, from short-term advantage to long-term adaptability. Yet even the most sophisticated navigation capabilities prove insufficient without the wisdom to know where one is ultimately heading. True formidability requires not just the ability to adapt to changing circumstances, but a clear sense of purpose and direction that provides coherence to all adaptations. This combination of adaptive capability and purposeful direction represents the final element necessary for sustainable influence in fragile societies. Part 3. Building Sustainable Influence. The autumn leaves crunched beneath Elena Volkov's feet as she walked across the university campus where she had first studied engineering 2 decades earlier. Now, as the founder of a successful clean energy company and a recognized voice in technology policy, she was returning to deliver the keynote address at the annual Innovation Conference. Her journey from graduate student to industry leader illustrated the transformation from temporary advantage to sustainable influence that defines true formidability in the modern era. Elena's path had not followed traditional patterns. After completing her PhD, she had worked for several established companies, but increasingly found herself drawn to the intersection of technology, policy, and social impact. Rather than climbing a corporate hierarchy, she had built networks across industries, developed expertise in multiple domains, and gradually positioned herself as a connector between technological innovation and societal needs. Her influence stemmed not from formal authority, but from her unique ability to synthesize complex information and facilitate collaboration between diverse stakeholders. Her story exemplifies the shift from traditional power models based on position and control to modern influence models based on value creation and network effects. Building sustainable influence in fragile societies requires understanding this fundamental transformation and developing approaches that align with rather than fight against it. Sustainable influence rests on 3 interconnected foundations: systematic value creation, authentic relationship building, and adaptive institutionalization. Each foundation reinforces the others, creating compounding effects that generate more durable influence than any single approach could achieve in isolation. Systematic value creation goes beyond simply being useful or competent. It involves developing unique capabilities that consistently generate benefits for others in ways that become increasingly difficult to replace. This might involve expertise that spans multiple domains, access to resources that others lack, or the ability to facilitate connections and collaborations that wouldn't otherwise occur. The key insight is that sustainable influence flows to those who become integral parts of other people's success rather than merely competing with them for limited resources. Instead of trying to win zero-sum competitions, formidable individuals create positive-sum opportunities, where their success enables and amplifies the success of others. Elena exemplified this principle through her approach to business development. Rather than simply trying to sell her company's technology, she worked to understand the broader challenges facing her potential clients and developed solutions that address those challenges comprehensively. This approach took more time initially, but created much stronger and more lasting relationships. Clients didn't just purchase her products, they integrated her company into their strategic planning processes and recommended her services to their networks. This systematic approach to value creation requires thinking beyond immediate transactions to long-term relationship building. It means investing time and resources in understanding other people's goals, constraints, and challenges, then developing capabilities that help address them. Most importantly, it involves consistently delivering on commitments and continuously improving the quality and scope of value provided. Developing systematic value creation capabilities requires several key elements. Deep expertise in at least one domain provides credibility and enables meaningful contributions. Broad knowledge across multiple domains enables synthesis and connection-making that specialists cannot provide. Strong analytical skills allow for rapid understanding of new situations and challenges. Most importantly, genuine curiosity about other people's perspectives and problems drives continuous learning and adaptation. The most valuable form of systematic value creation often occurs at the intersections of different domains, industries, or perspectives. Those who can translate between technical and business considerations, between local and global perspectives, or between current realities and future possibilities, create unique value that's difficult for others to replicate. Authentic relationship building represents the second foundation of sustainable influence. In an age of digital communication and global networks, the ability to form genuine human connections becomes increasingly valuable and increasingly rare. Those who can build relationships based on mutual respect, shared purpose, and consistent reliability gain access to opportunities and resources that no amount of formal credentials can provide. Authentic relationships differ qualitatively from transactional networking. They involve genuine interest in other people's success, willingness to provide help without immediate reciprocity, and consistent behavior that builds trust over time. These relationships become more valuable as they mature, creating compound returns that far exceed the initial investment of time and attention. Elena's approach to relationship building reflected these principles. She made it a practice to understand the personal and professional goals of people in her network, then actively look for ways to help them achieve those goals. This might involve making introductions, sharing relevant information, or providing advice based on her experience. Importantly, she did this without keeping score or expecting immediate returns. This approach required significant time investment and genuine emotional engagement, but it created a network of relationships that became increasingly valuable over time. People sought her advice because they trusted her judgment. They shared opportunities with her because they knew she would handle them professionally. They recommended her services because they had experienced the quality of her work personally. Building authentic relationships requires several key capabilities. Emotional intelligence enables understanding of others' motivations, concerns, and communication styles. Active listening skills allow for genuine comprehension of others' perspectives rather than simply waiting for chances to speak. Reliability in following through on commitments builds trust that enables deeper collaboration over time. Most importantly, genuine interest in others' success creates the foundation for mutually beneficial long-term relationships. The most valuable relationships often emerge from shared challenges or collaborative problem-solving rather than formal networking events. Working together on difficult projects, helping each other navigate crises, or collaborating to create new opportunities builds bonds that purely social interactions cannot replicate. These relationships become resources that both parties can draw upon throughout their careers. Adaptive institutionalization represents the third foundation of sustainable influence. This involves creating systems, processes, and structures that enable one's influence to persist and grow even when one is not personally present. Rather than building influence that depends entirely on individual effort, formidable people develop approaches that become embedded in the organizations and communities they work with. This might involve establishing recurring forums where valuable conversations continue to occur, creating systematic processes that consistently generate positive outcomes, or developing frameworks that others can use to solve similar problems in different contexts. The goal is to move from being personally indispensable to being systematically valuable. Elena demonstrated this principle through her approach to industry engagement. Rather than simply participating in existing conferences and associations, she helped create new forums for addressing the challenges facing clean energy adoption. With Trust Teddy, she worked with colleagues to establish working groups that brought together technologists, policymakers, and business leaders to collaborate on shared challenges. These forums continued to generate value and influence even when her direct participation was limited. This institutionalization required understanding how to create structures that served others' interests as well as her own. The forums succeeded because they provided genuine value to all participants, not just to Elena. They addressed real needs that weren't being met by existing organizations and created new opportunities for collaboration and learning. Creating adaptive institutions requires several key insights. Understanding the difference between structures that serve narrow interests and those that address broader needs enables design of institutions that attract ongoing participation. Recognizing how to create value for multiple stakeholders simultaneously enables sustainable growth and support. Most importantly, knowing how to embed systems that continue functioning without constant personal oversight enables influence to scale beyond individual limitations. The integration of these three foundations, systematic value creation, authentic relationship building, and adaptive institutionalization, creates what might be called compound influence. Each foundation reinforces the others, creating exponential rather than linear returns on investment. Systematic value creation provides the foundation for authentic relationships by giving meaningful substance to interactions. Authentic relationships enable more sophisticated value creation by providing deep understanding of others' needs and challenges. Both enable adaptive institutionalization by creating communities of stakeholders who benefit from systematic collaboration. Elena's influence exemplified this compound effect. Her technical expertise enabled her to create genuine value for business partners and policymakers. Her authentic relationships provided deep understanding of the challenges facing clean energy adoption. Her institutional innovations created systematic forums for addressing these challenges collaboratively. Each element reinforced the others, creating influence that extended far beyond what her individual capabilities might suggest. However, building compound influence requires understanding several important principles about how influence operates in modern environments. Unlike traditional authority that operates through commands and compliance, people choose to be influenced by those they respect and trust rather than simply obeying those with formal power over them. This shift requires different approaches to leadership and persuasion. Rather than telling people what to do, influential individuals help others understand why certain approaches serve their interests. Rather than demanding compliance, they create alignment around shared goals and values. Rather than punishing dissent, they encourage diverse perspectives that improve collective decision-making. These approaches take more time and require more sophisticated skills than traditional command and control methods. They require genuine understanding of others' perspectives, ability to communicate complex ideas clearly, and patience to build consensus around challenging decisions. However, they create more durable and extensive influence because they're based on genuine conviction rather than mere compliance. Modern influence also requires understanding how to operate effectively across different types of networks and communities. The approaches that work in hierarchical organizations differ from those required in peer networks. The tactics effective with technical experts may not work with business leaders or policymakers. Formidable individuals develop the ability to adapt their approach to different contexts while maintaining consistency in their core values and commitments. This adaptability extends to communication styles, decision-making processes, and relationship management. It requires understanding cultural differences, generational perspectives, and professional norms across diverse communities. Most importantly, it requires maintaining authenticity while adapting approach, ensuring that adaptations serve effectiveness rather than convenience. The sustainability of modern influence also depends on continuous renewal and adaptation. Unlike traditional forms of power that could be maintained through established procedures, modern influence requires ongoing value creation, relationship maintenance, and institutional innovation. Those who become complacent or stop growing find their influence gradually diminishing even if they maintain their formal positions. This requirement for continuous renewal creates both challenges and opportunities. It demands ongoing investment in learning, relationship building, and capability development throughout one's career. However, it also means that influence can continue growing throughout one's life, rather than peaking early and declining. Those who understand and embrace this dynamic often find their greatest influence comes later in their careers, when they've had time to develop the full spectrum of capabilities required for compound influence. Elena's ongoing journey illustrated these principles in action. Her initial influence came from technical expertise, but it expanded as she developed broader capabilities in business, policy, and institutional design. Her relationships deepened over time as people experienced her reliability and commitment to mutual success. Her institutional innovations evolved based on learning from earlier efforts and adaptation to changing circumstances. But Elena also understood that her current success represented only one phase in a longer journey of influence building. The same forces that had enabled her rise would continue to evolve, requiring new adaptations and innovations. Her sustainable influence would depend not just on her current achievements, but on her ability to continue growing and adapting as circumstances changed. This recognition leads to a final crucial insight about formidability in fragile societies. True sustainability requires building influence that can survive and adapt to whatever changes the future might bring. This means developing principles and capabilities that transcend specific circumstances, creating relationships that can weather various challenges, and establishing institutions that can evolve with changing needs. The ultimate test of formidability lies not in achieving temporary success during favorable circumstances, but in maintaining and expanding influence through multiple cycles of change and disruption. Those who pass this test become not just successful individuals, but lasting forces for positive change in their communities and societies. Elena's story continues to unfold as she navigates new challenges and opportunities. Her influence extends beyond her company to shape industry standards, inform policy decisions, and inspire the next generation of leaders. Her success demonstrates that sustainable formidability in fragile societies requires not just individual achievement, but contribution to the systems and institutions that enable collective success. The path to such influence remains open to those willing to invest the time, effort, and authenticity required to build it. In an age of rapid change and persistent uncertainty, the need for such influence has never been greater. Those who develop it will not only achieve personal success, but will help create the stability and progress that fragile societies desperately need. As Machiavelli understood 5 centuries ago, the acquisition and exercise of power reflects fundamental aspects of human nature that persist across all circumstances and societies. However, the specific forms that power takes and the methods required to build it evolve continuously with changing social, economic, and technological conditions. Understanding both the enduring principles and the contemporary applications enables the development of influence that is both effective in current circumstances and adaptable to future changes. The journey toward formidability in fragile societies begins with understanding these dynamics and continues with the patient, persistent work of building capabilities, relationships, and institutions that create lasting value for others. Those who undertake this journey with wisdom, authenticity, and commitment will find themselves not only achieving personal success, but contributing to the strength and resilience of the communities and societies they serve.